Hey guys, what is up? It's Dusty here, and welcome back to another crypto livestream, a daily crypto livestream at that. Today we have some very interesting news, partially on Ripple and XRP. There are some thoughts that you need to get in the back of your head if you are an XRP holder. We, however, also have a very interesting story on Kevin O'Leary. And that's actually the biggest part of today's live stream. I think we're going to spend about 9 minutes on this topic as it is extremely interesting. And then we have some miscellaneous pieces of news like regarding Chainlink and regarding Polygon. They got themselves some very nice partnerships. We also have a couple of warnings that we might get into, might not. And then obviously we have some stuff on Elon Musk, as he's basically done two very crazy things. First of all, he's been calling out the previous Twitter executives basically for some very strange internal policy, and he's let loose some insights on Sam Bankman-Fried, and I think you guys will all enjoy when I show you guys what exactly that is about. So I think we should start out with that video of Elon Musk calling out Sam Bankman-Fried. It's a little TikTok video that I made, or basically a YouTube short, but I think you guys will enjoy. So let's quickly watch this and then move on into our Kevin O'Leary piece. Elon Musk just spilled the beans on Sam Bankman-Fried, the founder of the now defunct FTX. And he basically says that his bullshit meter went off.
I had one conversation with SBF in May. It was like half an hour. He was just talking like a mile a minute. I think he was clearly on some stimulants. Kept talking about himself and FTX, which is weird because the call was supposed to be about Twitter. And I was like, shouldn't you want to ask me some questions about Twitter instead of talking about yourself? But everyone kept saying, Morgan Stanley and lots of other people kept saying, oh, SBF is the best and he's got tons of money. And so that's why I agreed to speak to him. But then like I said, he set up my bullshit meter, which frankly, I don't think this was like deep insight wasn't necessary. If someone's calling you to talk about investing in a big transaction, they should be asking questions about the transaction, not talking about themselves and talking at the speed of an auctioneer. It doesn't require deep insight to figure out that the bullshit factor is high.
So yeah, you guys understand already that Elon Musk apparently did not take Sam Bankman-Fried's investment because, well, his meter went off. And I feel for that, because if you guys have ever listened to a Sam Bankman-Fried interview, you know the guy speaks fast, and indeed it does sound a little bit weird. And again, we saw the pills over in his car, and that's also what Elon says. He felt as if he was on some stimulants for sure, because that's the way he speaks. Now we're going to get into the whole Kevin O'Leary drama. As you guys know, he's a paid spokesperson for FTX. We all know that. He said a couple of very interesting things though, guys, right now over on a new interview with Daniela Cambon. The reason I'm going to keep my little camera somewhere is because otherwise we might get copyright striked, and this way we can at least watch the entire piece. However, guys, if you're watching this stream right now, make sure that you press that like button. If you're watching this, it is greatly appreciated. We can instantly get to 50 likes if everybody just presses that button. And also, guys, in the chat box, like always, let me know what country you're watching from, as that's kind of tradition. Whenever you join the chat box, you have to say where you're watching from or what time it is. That is also fine, just so I can kind of gauge. I know it's very early in the morning for many people, but that's the way we go about these things, right? So just put it in the chat box and let us dive right in. So again, this is going to take a couple of minutes. I might stop it here and there, but I think it's important to see what Kevin O'Leary thinks about it, as he's the big shark that usually just sees right through all the BS, right? So how come he didn't see through FTX? How come he's still backing him up? How come he is such an advocate in saying that this is not a case where Sam Bankman-Fried needs to go to jail? And then I want to kind of go through with you guys as to why I personally think maybe jail is not that crazy of an option. But he basically compares it to the Lehman Brothers, says, well, even with those guys, they didn't deserve jail, and John Dean is going crazy on it. We're going to watch it, right? So just take a minute or a couple of minutes. She asked him a couple of questions, and he's going to finally start a little monologue here. So let's quickly dive right into that if we can. Let me put that straight again. There we go.
I think that's fair. Just to be transparent and open about it, I was an investor in FTX International and an investor in FTX US, and I was a paid spokesperson. And so those are all facts, and I'm living with them every day. This was not one of my good investments. This was a bad investment for a whole host of reasons. Luckily, I'm fortunate that this particular investment, both the ones in FTX, the accounts that I had in FTX with millions of dollars in them, and the ownership of FTX US, was not in a fund that had other LPs. I owned it 100%. We hadn't made the decision to diversify yet. We were waiting to see if FTX would go public and how regulation was going to come forward before we put other people's money at risk. This was all my money. So I'm thankful for that. Of course, I hate losing money, but it's not going to change the way I operate or what I'm going to do tomorrow morning. I'm going to continue to be an investor. This is not about crypto. This is about bad policy, bad regulation or lack thereof, if you want to put it that way, and some very weak compliance management. That's what's happened to these companies. It doesn't change the potential of what crypto is going to be.
So again, we have to take a little step here to quickly insert and say, so this guy then, the big man that's a heavy investor, and again, I do believe he's very good at what he does, right? Because I mean, he did see the potential where there could have been a lot, so to speak. However, you would kind of think that he'd be asking like, hey, you know, what is the accounting department at? Hey, you know, or something along those lines. The fact that none of these big investors ever asked is rather strange, right? And he's saying, well, the lack thereof of all this regulation. They apparently were liking that. They were loving that. That's why they invested. If he did not like the fact that the regulations were unclear, he probably wouldn't have put money in, but he enjoyed it, I guess.
But certainly it was a hit. There's no question about it. And, you know, it's embarrassing for me, obviously. So much due diligence had already occurred. I mean, if you look at the cap table of who was investors in this company, it's the who's who of financial services. And so I'm one of them. We're all embarrassed. We feel foolish.
I should again add, even Goldman Sachs was actually very excited about Sam Bankman-Fried, like we saw in this little Elon Musk video, that even Goldman Sachs tried, or Morgan Stanley, sorry guys, Morgan Stanley, you guys can't see it properly, but even Morgan Stanley basically tried to convince Elon Musk that this guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, was a really good guy. So it's not as if it's only Kevin that was caught off guard.
I was in Dallas, Texas, doing a keynote, remarkably, to a group of graduating cohorts of engineers and others at the University of Northern Texas. I think that's where it was. We got out of that speech, and that actual discussion that day was about how disruptive crypto was. So it's kind of ironic. I'm at the airport waiting to take off, and I get a call from one of my team members who is looking at the situation saying, hey, listen, Kevin, why don't we buy FTX if it's really on the desk for sale? Because remember, FTX had prior just done a round at a 32 billion valuation. And this was before any of this nefarious stuff was flying around. It was the Thursday. And so it wasn't clear to me whether it was 6 or 8 billion that they were looking for to clear the demand, or if you want to call it the run on the bank. But I needed to know the real number before we could syndicate that amount of capital. That's a lot of money. And so I called a contact there that I knew worked on the balance sheet, and I just got a voicemail, so I left it with that individual. And then maybe 2 minutes later, Sam called me back. And I said, Sam, look, I know you're going through a lot of pressure right now with this cash call and the whole thing with Binance and everything else, but I can't do anything with this or get involved unless I know what the number is. And he said, the number's 8, not 6. I said, okay, that's all I need to know. And that kind of a number, believe it or not, is not that big for sovereign wealth funds. And so, and I work with them in the index.
Here I got to give him the right by saying it's not actually that much money. The whole big question comes in with how exactly could you not know? Again, when looking at the big investors right here, just to name to give a little example of things, the investors, they were quite good. The cap table here was pretty awesome, so to speak, for Alameda and FTX. And if you then start to, this is the creditors, for example, if you then just start to think about the fact that none of these guys asked questions, that's pretty strange. Even though, again, guys like New York State Common Retirement Fund, BlackRock, it's not as if the $8 billion, even the $10 billion, whatever would be the problem. It's about the fact that nobody necessarily wants to invest into this because it just went too strange. It was just all too wacky, so to speak. And for that reason, I guess nobody eventually wanted to. So Kevin O'Leary there is right. They could have saved it for sure. They still can, theoretically speaking. The question is, does anybody want to? Because Well, apparently the whole management was wrong. So what exactly is the actual valuation of FTX? Is it closer to $3 billion? I mean, if it was all built upon lies and it was double accounting, maybe that whole issue is actually a lot worse, which we'll only start seeing over the next couple of months, potentially.
Business, so that's when I started making calls. And there was a fair amount of going back and forth. That afternoon, we delayed takeoff from the runway because I didn't want to lose signal. We were dealing with some sovereign wealth funds agents at that time. And then Gensler went on the air about 3 o'clock, and he made it clear that there was a hammer coming down. And the minute that occurred and the regulator was going to get involved, and then these nefarious claims and allegations started, that option of syndicating it with sovereign wealth was no longer an option for obvious reasons. And so I didn't call Sam back. I texted him back, said it's not going to happen. And that was the end of that. And then over the weekend, the alleged hack occurred.
Whoa. The fact that he says alleged hack is actually really interesting to me. I mean, he is an insider at FTX, basically. The fact that he says alleged hack? Oh, that is actually interesting. I didn't... Why did they do that? Somebody says... little notice. There's no... Oh, you guys can't see it properly. But there's no chat option while watching on Brave mobile browser. Yeah, sorry, my brother. I guess not. But yeah, at least know I still appreciate you, even if you're watching through Brave. Again, guys, make sure you press the like button if you're enjoying these daily crypto videos. I should quickly add a couple things, right? One is this right here, because it kind of coincides with the whole story. You guys have to understand this. This is the CEO of Coinbase. He says, I don't care how messy your accounting is or how rich you are. You're definitely going to notice if you find an extra $8 billion to spend. Even the most gullible person should not believe Sam's claim that this was an accounting error. It's stolen customer money used in his hedge fund, plain and simple. Which, again, people are starting to realize now, and I've actually seen many of the guys post on Twitter that you should stop listening to Sam Bankman-Fried. I think there's also one guy, what's his name again? Fat Man? Let's just type in Fat and we'll probably find him. Fat Mantera, I think. Yeah, I think he posted earlier as well. It's just stop listening to interviews or spaces. There will be no new information. His tactic is to repeat the lie over and over until enough people believe it. Don't play along. The only Sam Bankman-Fried interview worth listening to will be his cross in court under oath, months if not years away. And Autism says... There's truth in what you say, however, every once in a while, you find a rare gem or a rare stumble, or Sam speaks himself into an inconsistency. If amplified, this allows the future adults to tug on these threads themselves and dig in. Threads that otherwise may have been missed. And Fatman says, absolutely great point. SDNY are for sure enjoying these interviews very much. The Southern District of New York for the court. But in my opinion, for the average FTX victim in particular, they should save their sanity and ignore all the other noise. And it makes a little bit of sense from the perspective that whenever Sam Bankman-Fried speaks, a lot of it is to try and convince you that he was just, oopsie, I'm just a genius, I made a mistake, oopsie, where it's like, oh, well, my brother, it's an $8 billion mistake, which is, let's say, half of all your money, if you know what I mean. It's like, yeah, you know, it's not really feasible to make that big of a mistake. You know, nobody is actually believing that. Wall Street Silver also says, like none of you have ever tried to balance your checkbook and realize later, I'm $8 billion short. Oops. Oh, goofy me. You know, happens on a casual Wednesday. Because you can't miscount $8 billion. You have to be seriously challenged. I think, to be able to do that. It's, yeah, sorry guys, that is so funny. You know what's also interesting to me, before we move on with the whole Kevin O'Leary debacle, have you guys noticed that nobody's talking about the whole Luna debacle anymore? I was just today thinking about all the money I still have stuck in UST. Where are the updates on that? Where's my, we're gonna reimburse the smallholder for, where's all the drama? People are actually starting to get really quiet on that. They're getting too comfortable with the fact that that guy just ran off with a lot of our money as well, right? Because that guy is still extremely wealthy. I mean, he's in a little bit of investigation, a little bit of trouble, but it's not that deep, it doesn't seem. Is that because he's quote-unquote running, or what's happening with Mr. Do Kwon? I sometimes wonder about that, because I still would like to get some sort of reimbursement, but I guess I'm never going to get it. But hey. Let's continue on.
My accounts have zero in them. There is no accounting records there. They've been scraped. I talked to many other institutions about those accounts over the weekend. We were talking with our compliance departments and our lawyers, obviously, and that's where it stands today. Obviously, and I want to make a comment about this, this is a tragic story, not just from a financial collapse, but it's a human story. It's an unbelievable story. It's probably going to be told, for years to come. And the chapters haven't even been written yet. We're not even in the first chapter yet. Everything's allegation and insinuendo. We don't know anything yet.
Yeah. So just a few other questions, because you've obviously seen it. It's gone viral. The clip.
He is a paid spokesperson for FTX that says everything is alleged at this point. We're not even in chapter 1 of the big drama.
Where you said that you would still perhaps back Sam Bankman-Fried in another, should he resurface? The question is this, because
that question was taken completely out of context. I understand how it was edited. That's fine. But let me explain what that was about, just to clear the air. I made a comment for years now in the context of entrepreneurs, and particularly broadcasted by Shark Tank for 14 years, that I am not scared of investing in entrepreneurs that have had catastrophic failure, because I find, both for men and women, that the sting of failure really motivates people to figure out what they did wrong and not do it again. That's experience. That's what it is. Now, when that interview was taking place, it was at the beginning of the whole shakeout and the rumor mill of what was going on between Binance and FTX. And so, I didn't know the situation. Now, obviously, Sam is currently not investable while he's under alleged investigation.
Okay.
But it's so no, I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't be allowed to. But the point.
No, I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't be allowed to. That's kind of like, oh, I would if I could. I still wonder exactly about that, about what exactly Kevin O'Leary thinks about the whole situation. What do you guys think? Do you guys think Kevin O'Leary is in on this joke? I'm just reading the chat box. Or do you guys think that he's actually just an honest investor that's, making some investment choices purely about the money? What do you guys think? Just put it in the chat box real quick. I'm reading everything. So just put it in there. And everybody, if you haven't done it yet, make sure you press that like button as well. We right now are at 215 people watching, 61 likes. Let's get that up to 100 likes, guys. Let's just quickly press that button and let's get on going again further on in the interview.
Point was, we were talking about whether or not I would invest in entrepreneurs that have failed. And the answer still is yes. It's now up to Sam Bankman-Fried to clear his name. He knows that. He's going to have to do whatever he can and come out and explain what happened. I want an explanation. Every investor does. Are you kidding? Like what?
I'm sure you.
Okay, again, I sorry that I need to keep interrupting. Do you guys think Sam Bankman-Fried could ever clear his name, regardless of what he does? Because I personally would never trust a guy again that, oopsie, $8 billion for missing. I'm so sorry. I could never trust that guy again. But for the same sense, I cannot trust the guy who keeps saying, I didn't know. If he owned up to it, he would probably be a little bit more in jail, I think. If he was like, we made a big mistake, and we just, like, if he was a little bit more serious about it, instead of like I'm sorry, I didn't see it. But, like Berta says, sick, if I steal a beer, I go to jail. Yeah, and if you steal $8 billion, I guess it's just an honest mistake.
You do.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my question, because you obviously made a name for being the shark that cuts through the BS. You see through the BS of others. So the question is, what did you miss with Sam? How did you miss those red flags? And I know it could happen to anyone, but what was the error on your part? How did you miss it?
The truth is, and Danielle, I have to be honest about this too, I don't get it right every time. I don't. I've made thousands of investments. They're not all winners. This one was just all of us that have talked about this, all of us on that cap table, we've all talked to each other. We're stunned. We're just stunned. But we don't have any answers yet. And so I would actually like to know how this one went down. And so I'd like to find out more about that. I'd like to find out more about the other members on the cap table. We all look like idiots. And, I'm the first to admit it.
I'd very much disagree. I don't think for investing into FTX you looked like the idiot. For backing it again when things fall apart, you look like an idiot. I'm just going to be honest with you here, right? Full transparency. If I was given the opportunity to invest in FTX, I'd probably take it at some point, right? In the past, let's say. Because things from a number perspective looked really good. So you're not an idiot for not seeing through the charade because the guy can properly lie, we guess. The strange part is if you then asked about would you still back this guy, if you're saying, yeah, or this guy's the man, that's kind of weird. And now, again, what he's saying, like, I want to get to the bottom of this. I want to find out. Well, I'd say it's pretty simple. They either misunderstood the numbers, which is incredibly incompetent. I would never back those guys again. I would never look at them again because apparently these guys are freaking stupid. That's one. Or, and that's again as real as it gets, they just lied to all of us and stole our money, basically. They tried to double it through a little charade, didn't work out, so they lost, which maybe they've done 1,000 times before. But this one shows dishonesty and the fact that they would just take your money. If they could actually make more money with that, with a gamble, they would. It's basically like guys just literally gambling with your money. That's kind of what happened. And I guess here it fell apart because their collateral messed up. But yeah, that's strange. Nico says, sorry, gotta go. Mom's birthday. Keep on the good work, Dusty. Hey, brother, have a nice one. Have a nice birthday. Little fun fact. In Dutch culture, if any of you guys did not know this, whenever somebody says it's their relative's birthday or whatever, or it has been, you say congratulations to them, for them. And in other countries, I've noticed when sitting with Carl and everybody, all these other crypto guys, everybody said, oh, it's not something we do. It's kind of funny. I noticed that. So if a person comes up and says, oh, it's my uncle's birthday today, for example, you say, oh, congratulations. It's like when I was sitting on a table, they were like, why would you say that? Why would you say that? So it's kind of interesting. Maybe it's also a thing that you guys do in your country, but when we talked about it, it was not something that was really common. All right, so let's quickly continue on. We have a little bit more to go.
You've been taking a lot of heat. I'm sure you've seen the headlines from everyone from Nero Rubini to BitBoy. What would you like to?
The answers yet. And so I would actually like to know how this one went down. And so I'd like to find out more about that. I'd like to.
Tiger Global's now worthless FTX bet had Bain's due diligence. This again has to do with this whole table of people basically at the top here, of which were apparently incompetent to see through the charade, right? This is companies with exposure to FTX, for example. This was actually shared a little while ago. Paradigm, Sequoia, Temasek, Ontario's teacher pension plan. Okay, teachers in Ontario might have some really, really rough times ahead. Apparently their pension might be gone. Okay, that's not funny, but still, it kind of is. But it makes you think. Makes you think about that. Makes you really, really think. Makes you really think.
To find out more about the other members on the cap table. We all look like idiots. And, I'm the first to admit it.
You've been taking a lot of heat. I'm sure you've seen the headlines from everyone.
Okay, so Nuriel said, Nuriel Rubini attacks Binance CEO and says Kevin O'Leary should lose his role at CNBC. He is a paid hack for FTX. Well, to some degree, that assessment is kind of fair. If he's a paid spokesperson for FTX, his words don't mean as much when talking about FTX because he's paid to talk positively about them, I'd say.
From Nero Rubini to BitBoy.
Why did they keep BitBoy for like 0.1 second?
Nero Rubini to Bit.
So BitBoy said, so CoinDesk did an interview with Kevin O'Leary where he explained that Celsius would go to zero. Let me tell you guys in on a little secret. This was orchestrated by Kevin O'Leary and FTX. You guys ready for the news that's going to rock the crypto world?
Boy, what would you like to say to the haters? Because everyone's coming out of the woodwork now, right?
I'm a big boy on this stuff. I have to be honest with you without sounding trite. It's all noise to me. It's just Rubini, that's just noise. This Bitbozo guy, that's just noise. I don't care. And at the end of the day, it's got to be facts. The whole thing has to be driven by the truth. And we don't have it yet. So I'd like to get the truth. That's what I'm after. And, there's no question. all of the paid spokespersons, including me and Tom Brady and Seth Curry and Giselle and right down the list, we're all being sued. During that process, we're going to get to the truth. Litigation scrapes to the truth, and that's what's going to happen. Look, I would have rather not been involved in this, but it doesn't change anything I do, and it doesn't change my policy of transparency. And if people want to be crazy online, I've been watching this for years. I mean, it's noise, and I tell my whole team it's noise. I tell my kids it's noise. You have to have thick skin to do what I do.
Yeah, and again, he has some point where, again, he is getting a lot of the shizzles for stuff that other people have done, and that's, I guess, what you get as an investor. A little shout out to Daniel Knox for becoming a supporter. We've actually not had that in a while. I forgot that was actually a thing, so welcome to the club, my boy Daniel. Welcome, my brother. But we got to give him a little bit of credit for indeed being able to keep up with just all the garbage that's been bird pooped on his head. Fun fact, while I was streaming yesterday, I believe, a bird shat on the window. And it actually kind of shocked me because that's not something you see very often in like live vision, you know? It's like, what, you disrespecting me just like that? It's like, damn, you kind of want to smash a bird. How do you say it? Fight a bird, but you can't, you know? I could kind of shoot him down, I guess, but I don't have the capacity for that. I don't have the facilities for that, my man. So, yeah, it gets kind of difficult. I don't feel sorry for the guy, for Kevin O'Leary, but you gotta understand, this man is getting a lot of poop on top of his head for just being a paid spokesperson. You know, he's just getting paid. He's looking for his bag every single day, just being happy, taking some money in, talking good, and all of a sudden things go bad, and now he has to kind of backtrack and be like, oh, well, but I believed him in some way, but we look like, I want to get you the truth. When we get back to it and ask him, well, what exactly more of the truth do you need? It's like, well, the actual truth with the court. It's like, well, but the guy said there was $8 billion missing. Is that not enough truth to kind of conclude that he was a BSer? No, because he said it himself. He's not able to really answer difficult questions properly anyway. It's like, well, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Kevin O'Leary because of this, even though before he used to be a little bit of an idol. You know, as a venture capitalist myself, I do personally think he is really, really good at investing. He really is. So I really look up to him in that regard. And again, I don't blame him for investing into FTX. But this story of whatever he's saying right now, it kind of doesn't make sense to me. And I don't really trust him for that. So a big disrespect to him for doing that. To move on, Elon Musk, again, has been going crazy over on Twitter. Have you guys been following that? He's been exposing all the truth regarding Biden, and it's been a big hassle. All right, it's gotten millions and millions and millions of views over the last couple of hours already. And I honestly find it kind of scary to cover this because it just shows all the censorship that's going on in the background that you're not really noticing, but is definitely there. It kind of gets wacky, the fact that so much censorship is going on from the higher-ups, but the fact that he starts exposing this now, I guess, can only be done because he's the richest man on this motherfreaking earth, right? If he was anybody else, I'd be very afraid of him all of a sudden disappearing eventually. But the fact that he runs Twitter now, and the fact that he's the richest person that we know of in net worth, that makes him able to do this. But you can see Elon Musk promotes release of internal Twitter documents rehashing platform's block of Hunter Biden's story. Many of the details released on Friday night had already been public, including the steps the company took around the New York Post article from October 2020 that alleged it had a smoking gun email between Hunter Biden and a Ukrainian businessman. And again, I just recommend you guys to check this out for yourself. It's very important to kind of get to the bottom of free speech and all that, but it's a difficult little it's a difficult one, right? It is such a difficult one. This guy probably has a lot of dirt on a lot of others, which is why people are being very careful, trying to spin the story or whatnot. But I guess that's also why he's trying to get more towards Twitter being the mainstream of news, because other news outlets are owned by, for example, Jeff Bezos or all these other guys. You know, maybe the media is being manipulated more by the political spectrum. And he, from Twitter, can just let the people spread the news indeed, and he can help out with what exact things get shadowed and what things get put up there. But for the most part, it's really what the people are thinking, so that's good. A lot of you guys were saying, please get more and more and more and more Chainlink news out there. Why are you not posting more about Chainlink? Why are you not posting more about Chainlink? And if you guys in the chat box holding Chainlink right now, just for fun, just let me know yes or no in the chat box real quick. And if you guys holding Chainlink, It's been one of my favorite tokens for a long time, and honestly, there's just not that much crazy stuff to update on, except for the fact that this is happening in 2 days. They're introducing staking on Ethereum on December 6th. That's a really big deal, but I already covered it in a video. So the difficult thing, guys, is a lot of you ask questions about, hey, can you do an update on Mana? Can you do an update on Decentraland, which we had yesterday? Can you update on this, that coin? The problem with that is, if there's no crazy update to cover, all I can give you is just more noise. And all I can give you is just more theories, for example, which is, for example, we get a lot with XRP, which we're going to get to in just a second. But I actually like to cover real news, real updates, things you can do something with, or things you can kind of look your eyes out upon. Like, for example, the news with AVEX from yesterday. One of the things we have in terms of news is this right here, which in my opinion got pretty exciting. Polygon has partnered up with Walmart and industry giant Flipkart from India. Will Matic's price now rise to $50? Obviously, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but apparently Polygon just got themselves into a new partnership with Walmart-associated Indian e-commerce marketplace Flipkart. And yeah, all I can say about that is these guys do really well. These guys do really well for themselves, and Polygon just keeps expanding and keeps doing just more and more well. And I'm really all in for it. You know, Polygon keeps up the freaking pace of getting partnerships left and right, and I love it. Yeah. Flipkart, which is owned mostly by Walmart, yeah, apparently also got into a partnership after Walmart obviously also got into a partnership with Polygon. But that's like an update that I think is really useful, just to kind of get in the back of your head how good Polygon is now doing. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we have to get into our XRP debacle. A lot of you guys need to understand, XRP is my biggest holding, but at the end of the day, I only cover it because I like it, and I only cover it because I think a lot of you guys also enjoy getting these thoughts in the back of your head. I don't really care if anybody buys or sells XRP. It's not going to do anything if the 200 people that are watching this right now all of a sudden start flocking to XRP or something. That doesn't change the price at all. So please don't think I'm trying to promote it. I'm just talking about what I think. And honestly, I think our predictions have been pretty accurate, and I think we will keep doing that. However, guys, make sure you press the like button on this video. I know I've said it 5 times already, and you guys might be very annoyed by that. It is just because I know if I'm ever watching a video, I don't really press the like button too often unless I really start thinking about it. However, from the creative perspective, from my perspective, it helps out a lot because the more likes that are pressed and the more people that comment stuff, for example, the better the video performs, the better the live stream performs in the algorithm somewhere. I'm not the best with the YouTube algorithm. Please don't think that. But I just think the more people that press it, the better it works, which is why I keep asking, because people just forget or they don't care. But just know that it doesn't cost you anything, and it does help me out. That's why I'm asking. All right. Uh-oh. Sorry. There we go. All right. So, Ripple to tackle the $9 trillion market and could serve 50% of the world's population. Ripple is confident that its XRP ledger is capable enough to handle stablecoins and CBDCs for billions of people across the world. Ripple said that central banks will have to strike a key balance between centralization on one hand and innovation on the other. Now, the San Francisco-based blockchain startup Ripple has already been an active player in the fintech space over the last few years. However, can we still call it a startup if it's been around for over 10 years? However, the company is stepping up its efforts to cater the trillion-dollar market of CBDCs. As we know, central banks across the world have already started experimenting with CBDCs, and this includes some of the top economies like the European Union, China, India, Australia, and others. On the other hand, the United States has been a bit slow in evaluating the financials as well as legal liabilities of having a digital dollar. Ripple has released its own CBDC white paper offering a complete framework for implementing CBDCs, and it also provides detailed guidance for ensuring the global interoperability of different CBDCs. Ripple is seeking to grab a pie of its trillion-dollar industry that is evolving very fast. In a tweet, the blockchain startup noted, quote, this is a week ago, by 2024, at least 50% of the world's population is expected to use digital wallets for transactions, valued at over $9 trillion a year. Our white paper explores how central banks can utilize CBDCs to take advantage of this growth. And even though it's not a quote-unquote decentralized approach that we like, it is something that we can actually increase our value over, or that we can actually provide some value to, or take some benefits of the new value that's being created by, for example, Ripple. Our recent report shows how Ripple's XRP ledger is capable enough to handle stablecoins and CBDCs for billions of people across the world in this $9 trillion a year market, and it provides key features like security, reliability, sustainability, and interoperability that are crucial to the entire ecosystem. One major hurdle for Ripple is currently the existing case with the SEC. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse said that Bank of America, this article is not written that well, is looking to partner with Ripple, will be using ODL products. Well, let's quickly check that out, exactly what they're talking about right here. Let me know what they're talking about right here. We've talked before about Bank of America x Ripple, but let's see here. Linkto said Ripple Labs CEO stated to Linkto Director of Member Sales Nick Burafato at Ripple Swell in London that Bank of America is going to gain a competitive advantage when the SEC versus Ripple case settled by using ODL in the marketplace, because again, Ripple is already partnered up with Bank of America, and I guess this does not exist anymore. By going to utilize ODL, they're going to get a really big advantage over other banks. Brad made it clear that they're ready to settle with the SEC as long as they get clarity on XRP, which again, as of this point, probably is not the case. I asked him if American companies were waiting on the sidelines to jump in the game once that clarity happens, and he said absolutely. He specifically said Bank of America, which is looking but cannot enter fully unless the regulation is quote-unquote clear, right? Which also does make a lot of sense. Yeah, we just talked about this. Similarly, Australia's biggest financial conglomerate, CommBank, is looking to implement XRP's standard for domestic and global transactions. And last part, balancing between control and innovation. However, the blockchain startup has been facing some criticism, since many crypto enthusiasts believe that CBDCs will give central banks greater control over users' money. In its white paper, Ripple noted that central banks must balance the desire to transform with the need to maintain stability on a global scale. And Ripple said that central banks will have to strike a good balance between centralization on one hand and innovation on the other, the blockchain startup added. If central banks do not enable the broad access, enhanced native functionality, and interoperability, that will allow their currencies to be adaptive and scalable. They risk losing control of the infrastructure for global digitized services. Ripple added that central banks will also need to offer the non-bank partners greater access to core payment systems and infrastructure than they currently offer. For faster cross-border transactions, it's critical that central banks start working together to resolve these issues now, rather than leaving a bigger problem to fix further down the line, added Ripple. And that, again, makes a whole lot of sense. Again, I'm not the biggest fan in the world for CBDCs, but there is a use, there is a demand, and there is a lot of value that can be driven out of these by potentially being the bridge, for example, or things of that nature. There could be many, many different ideas for how to capitalize on that behavior, basically. Even though, again, I'm not a fan of the government controlling your currency more, you have to understand, right now with these online transactions, at the end of the day, you're in the control of these conglomerates regardless. With a new CBDC, you're not going to notice it for the most part, all right? There's a difference between a completely retail-focused CBDC or a basically a central bank, which is a central bank digital currency, like a central bank to basically sort of retail bank type of CBDC, which again, you're not going to see as a consumer, but it's mostly for the lending in that system. There are so many different use cases for it. Is your centrality really going to change? Well, if you're a full crypto user, why would you all of a sudden step over into a CBDC system? Because they force you? Well, they could never if you're a crypto guy. So it's not going to do too much. It's just more positive because we can capitalize on it rather than negatives. But I digress. So about Genesis, we need to understand the situation here. Apparently, Genesis owes Gemini users $900 million. Gemini has yet to reopen withdrawals for its users of its earned service due to a crypto market contagion from FTX. But this makes me also think, guys, if one of the platforms that's big eventually falls down, it might be yet another big freaking roller coaster of things. And it makes me relate back to what I said at the start of the video, that my money from the whole Luna situation has still never recovered. And I don't think it ever will. But to some degree, I'm also thinking, man, you really need to do your research into what companies are connected to what and where exactly you're lending out on to not be able to, or I guess to not have the trouble of being in trouble at some point. You guys understand what I mean. We've covered this. Yeah, we've covered a couple of these funny jokes, I guess. Sorry, bro, accidentally labeled all your money as my money. Now $8 billion is missing. My bad. Silly accounting tables by Sam Bankman-Fried, because that's kind of how it went. We've covered all these, and we've covered this one as well. Then there's only one interesting one. Paul Krugman, a Nobel Prize laureate.
Laureate Paul Krugman warns of an eternal winter for blockchain. Nobel Prize-winning economist Paul Krugman has warned about the possibility of a perennial winter for blockchain projects, including crypto. In a recent article published in the New York Times, NYT, the economist criticizes blockchain as a tech and its uses, citing several signs that he believes precede this upcoming winter.
Wow, that sounds good. Wow, that's starting to sound good. Maybe my job eventually will be nothing anymore, right? My job as a little newscaster for you guys on the interwebs. Could just be replaced by, wow.
Winter. Paul Krugman compares crypto winter to Fimbulwinter. Paul Krugman, the Nobel Prize Award winner, is warning about an upcoming eternal cryptocurrency winter for blockchain-based projects, including Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency networks. In an NYT opinion piece published on December 1st, The Economist discusses the real utility of this tech, and how there are already signs that predict a future downfall.
That is really funny. Krugman criticizes the real utility of this technology, when there are other centralized alternatives that currently function quite well. On this, Krugman explained his skepticism, stating, "What's the point? Why go to the trouble and expense of maintaining a ledger in many places and basically carrying that ledger around every time a transaction takes place?" So I guess even though he is very much talented to some degree, economist, he doesn't believe in the tech. Okay, sure. Who cares? Move on. This guy doesn't believe in it, but I guess it's because he likes centralized entities. Krugman criticizes the real utility of this technology when there are other centralized alternatives that currently function quite well. Isn't this one of the most dumb things I've ever seen? How does that make sense? How? Well, I mean, why would you want decentralization if the centralized option works well? Right? Why would you want to rely on other people forever? What is that? What? How? Why? What's going on right there? What's the point? Why go through the trouble? What? So again, even though he might be a Nobel Prize laureate, I was actually doing that for this word. What is the word? Let's see it again. Can we?
Laureate Paul Krugman.
Laureate. What does that mean? There's no way to. Okay, let me. What does laureate mean? Is it like winner, or is it like the recipient of honor or recognition for achievement in an art or science? A Nobel laureate. Okay, I guess that's what you call it right there. Cool. Huh. It's the same in Dutch, actually. But in Dutch, you mostly just say like a prize winner, basically, instead of laureate. I think laureate. You say mostly like prize winner. Morning, everybody. Welcome back to the stream. Again, we've covered most of my sources that I had open for you guys. I wanted to play. I want to quickly play this again, just because we played it once at the start, and now I want to play it again. Elon Musk calling out Sam Bankman-Fried is one of the most funny pieces we have for today, so I have to just quickly let you guys in on this one yet again. Elon Musk just spilled the beans on Sam Bankman-Fried, the founder of the now defunct FTX, and he basically says that his bullshit meter went off.
I had one conversation with SBF in May. It was like half an hour. He was just talking like a mile a minute. I think he was clearly on some stimulants. Kept talking about himself and FTX, which is weird because the call was supposed to be about Twitter. And I was like, shouldn't you want to ask me some questions about Twitter instead of talking about yourself? But everyone kept saying, Morgan Stanley and lots of other people kept saying, oh, SBF is the best and he's got tons of money. And so that's why I agreed to speak to him. But then like I said, he set up my bullshit meter, which frankly, I don't think this was like deep insight wasn't necessary. If someone's calling you to talk about investing in a big transaction, they should be asking questions about the transaction, not talking about themselves and talking at the speed of an auctioneer. It doesn't require deep insight to figure out that the bullshit factor is high.
Now, again, the the speed of an auctioneer. I guess it kind of depends, but it's kind of strange, not gonna lie. However, a lot of you guys are also calling out Elon Musk in the chat box, and actually when I saw it on the interwebs, these talks, people are often calling out Elon Musk for stuff as well. I don't know. I personally like a lot of what he's doing. I don't agree with every single one of his things, but a lot of his stuff is just well thought out and it works. So you got to respect the hustle in that department. But it made me think as well, about the fact that he's talking about himself. Makes me think about why exactly does he do that? Is he just trying to showcase that he has made it and that he should be able to invest into all of this? And also, there's another very important part about right here.
Morgan Stanley and lots of other people kept saying, oh, SBF is the
best. That's what these big guys kept saying. Interesting.
Best, and he's got tons of money.
Apparently those were client funds then, huh? Apparently that was our money that he was basically using for all of this. Because at the end of the day, if he was allowed to invest, that's the money that he would be able to put in there, isn't it? That's literally the money that he would be putting in then. Or am I wrong? Kevin's yacht is moored in Barbados outside Sam's apartment. Barbados or Bahamas, my brother? How far are those two apart? Barbados and Bahamas are still quite far away. Quite a couple thousand kilometers away, my brother. Maybe 1,000 or 2. Yeah, that's pretty far. Bahamas is like right next to Florida, like right next to Miami. And Barbados is like right next to Venezuela, basically. Further than Puerto Rico even, so. Not sure exactly which one you mean. Okay, people are not so happy with Elon Musk, I guess, huh? That's interesting. Interesting. People who won't buy XRP for 38 cents, but will FOMO in at $5 to $10 and higher. Yeah, a lot of people will probably have that same. But the same thing is basically going on for crypto as a whole. If you think about it, the majority of people will start buying when things are really, really crazy high already again. And that's because people are often, they like to go into a train that's already doing well instead of being the guy to defy everything. If you guys get that drift, it's like, it's easier to buy when things are already doing extremely well because you don't have to think too much. It's like, well, this is doing well, everybody's getting in, so let me also get in. It's more difficult to be like, wow, this thing is doing shitty, let me buy it. And again, I often like to, let me actually grab it up here. Intelligent, let me, what, in Hindi? Damn. Accident, can happen. So, there's this book, The Intelligent Investor, that I often quote for you guys. Which page would this be? It's in the silver lining still at the start. Let me quickly see if I can find it. There's a proof that high IQ and higher education aren't not enough to make an investor intelligent. That's kind of funny. But there's basically a part in this top area right here, which basically has to do with the fact that the lower that the value of a stock goes, the less risky it basically gets, instead of the opposite, which the most people think, right? It has to do with the fact that people often think, oh, the higher it goes, the less risky it gets, because that means people are excited about it. That means it's better. However, it's actually exactly the opposite way around. And it's somewhere in these two pages. I think it's page 16 somewhere right here. It's somewhere in these next couple of pages. I think it's in the silver lining right here. But I just recommend you guys to check out this book. Let me actually show it to you guys. I've been scrolling and showing it to you, but apparently I did not have it open. Yeah, but just check this out for yourself. This book is called The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. It's honestly one of my best recommendations. Gonna be honest with you. All right? It's not gonna teach you too many crazy principles that also work for crypto, but it's more of the underlying idea of investing. And even though it's a little bit outdated to some degree, it's still worth a read if you're looking for these sort of, how can you say it? If you're looking for these sort of underlying lines. And again, one thing you have to understand very carefully as well is, in my history here, how many freaking investments have you placed? I think maybe 300, for example. And if you include all those strange altcoins, for example, it might be 350 or so. Many of them will fail. And as an intelligent investor, I guess you also know, like Kevin O'Leary says as well, he's invested in thousands of companies. You invest in many different things. And at the end of the day, many of them will fail. So whenever you go for something, be modest with it. I've believed many and many times that this was going to be the next best thing, for example. There's many people that have come up to me with their whole story, and most of the time you just lay them off to the side and you're like, nah, that's not going to be it. But very often, even though I didn't feel completely perfect, I still put money into it. I very often had that. But very oftentimes as well, they pitch an idea that's so good, has so much revolutionary potential, and it just doesn't pop off. That's happened many times before, even in the metaverse space. These guys come up to me with such crazy partnerships that you're like, oh, this has to work. Well, but then you notice after about 15 or 20 of these calls that all of these guys have the same similar sort of partnerships, or that the idea which they were so excited about has been done before but didn't work out properly, and so forth and so on. So that's a very important thing that you kind of learn from this as well, that, well, most of the time it's I guess Kevin O'Leary also portrays it. It's about kind of spreading those things out and thinking about many of these things for the longer idea. Yeah, we'll get $5 for XRP after settlement. I personally hope so. Benjamin Graham, yeah, that's the guy. Dusty, what is your price prediction if we settle, and 2 if we win? I personally think, again, this is difficult because the market has now gone a lot more negative, and it's also a question of, well, can anybody actually predict? But I personally would be quite excited if we go back to all-time high, and if we actually go to $10 or so, I would be extremely excited. But the chance of that happening is lower the lower that the price goes, right? Because at this point, it would be 30x. Just because of one announcement, 30x, the amount of capital needs to be injected is significant. And I think a lot of it will take time. Let's see. How'd that GSX idea go? Lol didn't stop you from shilling it too? Personally, I did invest quite a significant amount in GSX, and actually those guys I still sometimes have contact with. But that one is also a sad story in my own opinion, because those guys were very convincing in my opinion that their idea was awesome. And well, with the partners that I've spoken to as well, that were also investing, things looked pretty amazing. They're inviting everybody over to the mines to actually check it out. A couple of my guys went. Things are looking pretty good. So I lost a good chunk of money on that one, which is kind of sad. There's actually a couple of other ones that I think you guys might still remember that I've lost tons of money on. If you guys remember Electronium, that was the cryptocurrency that kind of started my whole channel. We actually were there in the ICO. And a lot of you guys had told about, and basically, I think a lot of people also bought with me in the ICO, basically, because that's what my channel was about at the start. Very convinced, very hardcore supporter. Boom, lost every single dime in that. The price went down piece by piece, but also then Cryptopia got hacked and I lost all my tokens. There's been a couple other ones. I used to be a really big fan of Tron. I think my investment is like 95% down on Tron. I'm not so sure. I think so. How much is Tron down, guys? I haven't covered it for, I think, like 3 or so years, but my investment is down a whole lot. Cobb says 50 plus XRP this coming week. Okay, I'm not so sure why anybody would say that. BK says, Dusty, remember XRP was number 2 in the crypto ones. XRP has been number 2 for a very long amount of time, to be honest with you. XRP has been number 2 for a very long amount of time. Let's check it out. So if we go to CoinMarketCap and go to dominance right here, you can actually see before Ethereum came around, XRP used to be in the top, of course, obviously. And after Ethereum came, well, it dipped back up there a couple times, but Ethereum obviously took over, especially when the lawsuit came around. XRP started to go kind of into oblivion. You guys can't see it perfectly, but you understand the idea. Dusty, remember XRP is number 2? Yeah. Cobb says, okay. Trillions of money sitting on the sideline waiting to come into this. That is also true. I personally still think a lot of the money is still sitting quite silently. That will eventually be injected. Especially when we get the settlement, right? Especially like we just saw with things like Bank of America. They are waiting from a certain perspective to just get in heavily. And I guess a lot of these funds, they've also said they're going for Bitcoin and partially Ethereum. A lot of these guys might actually go for XRP, which is more and easily connected to banks when they get the proper regulatory clarity. So it does make sense, but that is more of a gradual thing. The question you should ask yourself is, I personally think a lot of these major funds, they are already banking on the fact that Ripple will win. So they're already buying in the background and the price is being kept low deliberately, but that's my thoughts. You got to ask yourself, how much will the price actually go up instantly the moment that they have the regulation because of major funds? I think the major funds will buy in piece by piece, but they will not announce it yet. So they'll try to keep it as low as possible because once the regulation comes, they still want to buy as cheap as possible. So why would they make it a big deal saying, oh, they've won, we're going to allocate? They're going to allocate and then tell you that they've done that after the fact. So, who exactly, it's going to be mostly retail and us with the idea that it's going to all of a sudden be worth a lot more because of all these players that are entering and because of all the opportunities that they can have and because of the massive expansion that can come from allowing this US market. But Uzuma says, sound is low. How are we doing with the sound, guys? Is it good? Should it be higher? Should it be lower? Squirrely says, a gold-backed crypto was a good idea in a nutshell. Glint seems to take care of that. What is Glint? What does Glint mean, guys? Give out or reflect small flashes of light. A tiny bright flash of light. I'm not so sure what that exactly means. Or is it the company? Glint app? Not so sure. Again, I'm actually not the I'm not the biggest gold guy. I own a little bit of gold, but not too much. But the idea of another gold-backed crypto. Okay, sorry guys. Again, the idea as they pitched it to me was a yeah. In my opinion, I was very excited about it, guys. Again, take a look. We should actually, for fun, at one point, go through a lot of the investments that I've placed that have failed because there's so many. There's ridiculously many. There are some that are, we've also, another one, actually, I should note upon this too. If you check back my channel about half a year ago, and again, I'm always very transparent about all this. If you check back my channel about, I'd say half a year ago or so, maybe a year ago, we're often talking about these launchpad tokens, right? So there's a value proposition with these things, and I think it's important to note, because at the end of the day, please understand this. I never want you to buy something because it's going to okay, let me actually really phrase this well, because this might go into eternity, basically. I never want you to buy something because of what I said and make you lose money over the long run. Unless it's basically a good, okay, I don't know how the best way to phrase it. Let me just add it with extra words. My goal is always to get the most value for everybody out there. So when I talk about something, I usually expect it to either do well, or if I talk about three things then, that one of those three things does well to cancel out the first two that failed, for example. At the end of the day, I will be wrong many times. I will be 100%. I'll be wrong many times in the near future as well. And with those launchpad tokens, for example, the idea is this. The launchpad tokens were such a great value proposition where you buy into them, you're able to allocate some money into a sale, and that sale sometimes went 100x, 400x, 300x. So the only thing there is, how long exactly are we going to get consistent basically supply of sales to make this investment into the Launchpad token worth it? Now that was a difficult one where you had to estimate and kind of guess. And at the end of the day, a lot of it failed because the bear market didn't do well. But the idea there was awesome because again, we've seen it. And I've also missed out on maybe tens of millions of dollars, I think maybe $20-25 million by not acting quick enough, for example, on some of these sales that they had at that point. Because you have to be pretty quick and there's, guys, the story gets so big if you really start diving in. There are many guys in the VC game that were a little bit quicker, let's just say 1 year quicker, that were able to make, let's say, $100-150 million more just by getting the same investments that I got access to, but I didn't actually take them on. It's just such a great game. But that also involves losing millions of dollars in the process. So it's a really big game, and I'm sharing a lot of these things that a lot of people are not sharing with you. But the fact that there's so much opportunity out there is something a lot of you guys don't see. And it all has to do with being able to take the risk and being able to fully convince yourself. And I had an interview recently in Malta, and he basically asked me, what was the biggest loss or biggest, basically, failure that you've ever had? And my honest answer to that is the fact that I was not able to adapt quickly enough to the fact that you should be able to invest everything, risk everything to make crazy amounts of money. And that relates back to FTX's story, which is Sam Bankman-Fried was a guy that's willing to risk everything, even more than he actually had, to make the big buck. If his sham was successful, he would have doubled his net worth from, let's say, $15 billion to $30 billion, for example. But it failed. And that was due to unfortunate circumstances. Now, in principle, though, that's basically how risky you have to be to actually become that crazy wealthy. For the most part, right? They often share stories of what Elon Musk did to get to his level of wealth now. A lot of it has to do with the fact that you have to risk so much more than most people would be able to risk. Okay, let's say, for example, this right now, guys. Let's say, and this is a good experiment for yourself. Let's say I give you $50,000 right now. Let's say let's say we do a giveaway and I give somebody $50,000 bucks. For example, you win it. Are you going to invest every single dollar of that to make it more, or are you going to put some money to the side? Most people would say, I'd invest $40,000 bucks and I'd kept $10,000 for this, that. Okay, I understand. Let's say you invest a full $50,000. Now, how much of that are you investing again? People would say, I'd keep $2 million to the side and invest $18 million. What if I told you that out of that $20 million, a lot of these guys would actually try to leverage that $20 million to get a $100 million loan to then invest all that again into, generating or try to generate, $150 million off of that or $80 million off of that. That's how risky a lot of these guys are. Where they wouldn't take a little bit out to know they'd fully leverage the full money that they got to try even get more. That's so crazy. That is so crazy. That's so crazy. But that's risk. But that's also where the big money lies. So again, have I had failed investments? Have I talked about failed cryptos? Yes, I'll always stand up for that. I've had many failures. But at the end of the day, that's our game. As long as we are right more than we are wrong, then it's fine. As long as we can make more money than we lose, we're fine. And we can be wrong 99 times before we're right once. And as long as that one time is more than 100x, it was all worth it in the end. Is it painful in the head? Is it stressful? Sure. At the end of the day, guys, please understand me very much so that if I talk about something, there's no benefit in me trying to make you buy. Please, it's not going to up my portfolio. I've never had an audience big enough where I can have I guess theoretically speaking, we could have done pump and dumps basically, right? But there's no value benefit in that. And as I've said before as well, the moment that my mindset shifted basically from, okay, let's also be completely open again. I like to be this way. If I was 16 years old and sitting in front of you right now, so a long time ago, I'd be more keen, because again, I was not wealthy at that point. I'd be more keen on thinking, okay, maybe there's a way to make money. Maybe I can be rich some way. But now, again, I'm a lot older, a lot wealthier. I don't need anybody to give me anything to live a good life. I'm done with everything. The only reason, and this is the truth, that I'm sitting here right now is because I enjoy what I do, and I think we can make more money, and there's no negative side in me sharing it. And I've had people all around in my family, for example, people come up to me in the street that have said, I invested into this because of you. I invested into crypto because of you. I've invested into just space things because of you. I'm like, damn, yeah, the fact... At some point, you want to shift from making money, basically, to having some sort of value in your life. And one thing that I personally like is seeing the fact that we're helping people, or the fact that we're having a community go up in terms of numbers. That's the real thing that's keeping me excited. It's not that I make money. Let's say somebody comes up with a $100,000 deal, for example. If you're 16 years old, this excites you. Now, if I get a $100,000 deal, it's not a big deal anymore, so to speak. It's not something that keeps me up at night or something like that. Things change. So... the same thing applies to many other things. The more money you get, the more it changes your mindset. And right now it's mostly about how exactly can I educate these people on investments to a certain degree. And I guess that's also how I now understand that people would want to become a university professor, right? When I was in university, again, people don't notice. I did study for a couple of years. I did study in Netherlands, a full study term, 3 years, econometrics and data science to be exact. And at that point, I never really understood why you'd want to become a mathematics professor, right? You're sitting there with these guys teaching you econometrics. You're like, why would you want to do this? And the more I grew into this, I'm thinking, man, I kind of understand now why you'd like to really educate the people on this. I did also think in the back of my head, well, I'm a lot wealthier than many of these economics teachers, but that's not their goal. A lot of these guys, I remember, fun fact, there's this, I think, macroeconomic class in my first year of studying. And then I basically had a trade open. This is actually when I was trading gold, fun fact. And I think at that point, I traded actually a lot of things, but I think it was a $2 million trade. And this is, again, because we had a big company regarding trading. We've done many fun things in the past. We actually had a big series on trading before in 2017 as well. We traded with bigger funds and whatnot. And I showed that to my macroeconomics professor. And actually, the whole class was about my trading thing, which was really a fun thing. Not the whole class, but let's just say maybe a 20-minute section out of the first 45 minutes of the... It's not a whole section, but you guys understand. And so then I started thinking again about, becoming not me becoming a professor, but why somebody would. And that, I guess, is also why you become like a person on the YouTubes like this. I guess you can have multitude of reasons. But, Dusty, can you enable English subtitles? Can't watch your channel early in the morning in bed without it. So, I don't know. It says my videos always have automatically generated subtitles, but maybe some of them don't. But I'm not so sure why they wouldn't have it then. if they don't have it, I'm not so sure why not. Because it says generate automatic captions and I just put it on all the time. But if it's not there, then I wouldn't know how to change it for you, basically. Yeah, it just says there's always English. I checked, for example, one of the videos back here. If you look at it, it says like English language of the video. This is, for example, for one specific video, for this one. Yeah, it should be published, the subtitles. So it's not me putting subtitles there, myself, right? Oh yeah. Also another so I'm watching says not live. We are live. We are live. One question I have for you guys is I try to put some subtitles at every single one of my new videos at the start. Would you guys like for the subtitles to be the whole video? Like my official subtitles, the ones that I put myself. It's like big text. Would you guys like more of that or? Hey guys. So it's like this. It's looking like this. I do this at the start of the video for like the first minute or so because I'm like trying to introduce people like a little bit and just make it more obvious what we're introducing. But would you guys like for this to be like the full way or what? Because I can. However, then I will not sit through and edit every single word properly. Some words will be wrong. But it's not more effort to let this last the whole video. I just put it the first minute because I think that's enough. But if you guys would like to have it more, I just think it's annoying to have subtitles if you don't need them. Kala says, I read a 2015 Ripple settlement document last night on Twitter. It's already done from what I read. Anyone read it? So, Kalai, I think what you might be, or Kala, whatever. What you might be talking about is something completely else with FinCEN that Ripple had a discussion with a while back. Aris is Metal's Vault Online, uses Ethereum and Polygon networks. Dusty, you should do as you're not leaving anyone out. You should do it so you're not leaving anyone out. Yeah, that might be smart, to be honest. So one person says, no, I meant I don't think you can have subtitles when live. No, okay, yeah, not live. Oh, sorry, I see what you mean. Yeah, subtitles live is obviously not something I can help out with. Yeah, no, I can't do that. Yeah. But again, guys, if you ever have any question, just come back. I think for the next 3 days or so, I'm going to be over in Italy. So I might not be able to live stream. I'll get the videos out to you guys, of course. But I'm going to basically conduct some business in Italy, which will be interesting. I might let you guys in on that. I might not. We'll see. So if you guys are in Rome, just reach out. Maybe I'll actually chat up and say hi. But yeah, I might not be able to stream there. I'll check out if the internet connection is going to be fine. But videos, of course, will come out on all the most recent news. If you guys ever have any questions, though, again, I'm pretty much an open book on most of these parts. If you ever have any difficult questions or any strange parts, just ask them in the chat box whenever we're doing a live stream. I'll address it live. Or if it's more of an in-depth question, ask it over on Twitter or something like that. But, very important, state your full purpose. Don't say, hey. There are so many people sending me, hey. I never respond to that. If it's a full thing, unless you're asking me like, hey, how do I send money from this to that place? Google it or ask the support from that platform. Don't ask me like a technical support question. But some of them I try to look through most of my tweets, like 95% of them, so I'll get through it. But most of it is like, really, if it's Googleable, I will not answer. All right, let me just put it like that. So that is it for right now, guys. See you guys again in another stream tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow, maybe not, depending on what works. But I'll see you guys again very, very soon again in a live stream. Otherwise, it will be videos, at least for the next 3 days. I think it will be more difficult, but again, make sure you press the like button if you enjoyed the stream, guys. I appreciate you guys a ton. And yeah, I think that was it. See you guys later. Cheers out, everybody. Peace out.